Hello. So have you been reading Dale Bredesen, The End of Dementia, or Joe Mercola's Fat for Fuel, or some of the other books out there about cardiovascular health and inflammation? Have you been tempted to stop your statins? Plenty of my patients have. Be careful if you're planning on stopping your statins. I just had another one do that recently and regretted it. I'll tell you the story. This is Ford Brewer, PrevMed. Preventive medicine. We help our patients prevent heart attack, stroke, dementia, disabilities. Now, tonight's going to be a little bit more of a story. A lot of my viewers write in and say, please tell a story. I know I get technical, so we'll do that tonight. We'll leave the technical stuff out, maybe somewhat, but anyhow. So I had a patient. We were doing follow-up labs. This patient has done great. Lost almost 40 pounds. Has been running, exercising. He had some problems with insulin resistance. Really knocked that out of the park. In fact, he dropped his hemoglobin A1C from the high 5s down to about 5. Lowered his triglyceride over HDL ratio to less than 1.5. It was over 3. Has been doing some, again, great things. He's also, as he's done that, he's read the book, The End of Dementia by Dale Bredesen. He's read Fat for Fuel by Joe Mercola. He's read other stuff on the internet about the dangers of statins. And yes, there's no question, statins create problems. I've got a video on it, and I'm not going to, if you'd like to hear the video on the dangers of statins and the risk-benefit, Google my name, Ford Brewer, and risk benefits of statins. There are also major risks for stopping statins. I've got a couple of videos on that which review the literature and the science behind the risk of stopping statins. Just Google my name, Ford Brewer, YouTube, stopping statins. You'll see those videos. I'd had a long day. I'd had a couple of meetings and planned on have a couple of more meetings, but a couple of patients called in for issues that I ended up dealing with. At the end of the day, I had a couple of texts from this patient, and here was the situation. He got his labs back. He got them back before I did. That was an internal technical error or process error. But his myeloperoxidase was over 5,000. He panicked. One of his text messages said, "This can't be right. If it is, my veins are full of pus and or arteries." And it's like, yeah, I understand. He also had a family event going on, a wedding inside his direct family. So the emotions were running high. Now, I had to go back and remind him, myeloperoxidase is our most common false positive test. Myeloperoxidase it's the enzyme that comes from some of the immune cells, the ones we call neutrophils or polymorphs. And it's the enzyme inside those cells. So here's what happens. If the venipuncturist doesn't spin the serum down and get the cells out within half an hour, you get a false positive because it leaches out of the cells. The MPO does. Here's another way you can get a false positive MPO. If after spinning, you can spin it appropriately and then drop the pipette a little bit too far down below the serum layer into the white cell layer. If you do that, You can still get a false positive because you get a lot of white cells. So I suspect that's what happened. Again, happens all the time. So here's what you have to do, though. You can't ignore it. If you could totally ignore it, we wouldn't be getting the test in the first place. But you do have to, again, often talk the patients down out of a tree. Because if you read about MPO, myeloperoxidase, it can be a serious marker. In Brad Bale and Amy Dunnean's book, Beat the Heart Attack Gene, they call it the Joker. And their point behind it is everything else can look good, but if the MPO is really high, all bets are off. You can be toast. So, again, patients get very emotional when they see that. There are a couple of things that you give for this. One of the most common and easily accessed is melatonin. Melatonin actually improves the situation when people do have an elevated myeloperoxidase. So if you do what I do for a living, you get a lot of follow-up inflammation panels. Whenever this is going to happen, you're going to get a false positive and sometimes a true positive. I suspect this one was false. You tell the patient, take some melatonin. I suspect this was false positive, and here's why. You go through the details on the patient's case. Then you repeat the test. So this patient's now taking melatonin. He's going to have a nervous few days to a week while we're waiting to repeat some of his lab tests. And again, here's the thing. Unlike many of our patients, his was a mixed picture. And here's why. He stopped his statin. He's a friend of mine, and he told me about a week ago that he had done this. But then it wasn't until the labs came back today. He said, yep, I stopped my statin 3 months ago. He did have some elevation in his plaque too, so clearly there was some inflammation, increased inflammation going on. We started him on his statin again tonight, within hours of finding out. We had increase of that inflammation panel again. Love to hear your comments. Again, this was story style, not so much a literature review. And I hope it helps get that point across yet again. Cardiovascular inflammation causes heart attack and stroke. There's literature out there. I've done reviews on it. Stopping statins can be dangerous.